What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devinder Hardwar. This week I'm joined by Senior Editor Sam Rutherford. Hey, Sam.
Hey, how's it going?
Going okay. And also podcast producer Ben Elman. Hey, Ben.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We are back with a proper episode this time after a bit of a holiday. And yeah, we were doing an event in New York. That was fun. But we're here to talk about Samsung's latest Unpacked event where they showed off their latest foldables, the Z Fold 7, the Z Flip 7, and, the Galaxy Watch 8, which I feel like is far less on the desirable things among Samsung fans, but okay, that's there too. Sam's going to be talking about all that. And also, all of us in Gadget have been doing a lot of work around the Amazon Prime Day because we like to collect the deals. And being in media these days, like the deals are an important part of like how we survive and everything. And you know what? There's some good deals out there too. You can we'll talk about like the best things we saw. I was in charge of TV stuff. I was shocked at like what the prices were coming down to. Like a really good mini LED 98-inch set under $2,000. Wild stuff out there. As always, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. Yes, leave us a review on iTunes and drop us an email at podcastinggadget.com. And join us Thursday mornings around 11 a.m. Eastern for our live streams, typically. Although summer is going to be a little weird because I'm off for a couple of weeks. So I guess we probably won't be doing another live stream until, looking at the calendar here, probably August 7th ish. So we're taking a bit of a summer break, but you can mark your calendars August 7th around 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We will do some sort of live stream. And I do want to bank some like questions from the audience. So if you have stuff you want us to discuss, drop us an email at podcastinggadget.com. I predict news will probably be pretty light that week at the beginning of August. Sam, once again, you were out at a major tech event. This time it was Galaxy Impact. Can you talk a bit about just dealing with that event, in the middle of summer, and also what were the highlights for you from it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting. It's like, a little weird to have, unpacked so soon after 4th of July because, usually you
Yes.
want to have a little bit, more time to prep. And especially because for me, this is like, one of my favorite events of the year. You know me, I love foldable devices. And that's which, the big focus for this show. So we got, a handful of new devices. Main headline ones being the new Z Fold 7. There's also a new Z Fold Flip 7, or sorry, Z Flip 7. And for the first time, we're getting a FE Flip, which is the first time Samsung's ever done one of its like, FE more affordable versions of any of its foldables. And then there's the Galaxy Watch 8. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm gonna, I just get right into it. Start with the Z Fold 7. There's already someone in the chat who's like, the Z Fold 7 is a regressive joke, and I think that's like incredibly harsh
Yeah.
because the design of the new Z Fold 7 I think is magnificent. Okay, so let
It's
me
just
just
the
run down some
S
quick
Pen, right?
specs
It
for you.
loses the S Pen, so a lot of people are pissed.
Yes, and we're going to get to that. I do understand that argument.
Hmm.
But just some quick specs. The main screen is now 8 inches across, which is up from 7.6. And as if you want this device, you want that big flexible screen. So getting more of it, can't argue with that. But the design is, Samsung has really thinned out and kind of streamlined and sleekified the phone.
Hmm.
And so now it's 8.9 millimeters thick when it's folded. Now, for reference, that's the S25 Ultra is 8.2 millimeters. So basically, you're talking about the exact same thickness for a foldable phone. And we kind of saw this coming. If you look back to the S25 Edge, they kind of really went all out in thinness on that. And I was like, okay, that's cool for the Edge. It's kind of a better version of the S25 Plus.
Hmm.
But when you streamline a big foldable phone like the Z Fold 7, it makes a much bigger impact. It's also significantly lighter, 215 grams. That's just 3 grams heavier than the S25 Ultra. So actually, I have both right here, so I can hold them up, and you can see basically the same size, same thickness. Um, the Z Fold 7 is actually a little bit narrower because it has that kind of folding design, but it doesn't feel like a candy bar the way that previous Z Folds have had because it's just like almost baton
Hmm.
like very skinny. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like Samsung has really done it because what's the biggest issues with foldable phones? They weren't waterproof. They fixed that a while ago,
Hmm.
and they were just big and heavy, and they would weigh you down when you put them in your pocket. That is no longer the case. This thing is just like magnificently designed. And this is kind of what I've always wanted Samsung. I feel like, the Z Fold line was kind of treading water for a couple generations. And this is a really big design change. And they've, kind of knocked out one of the final remaining hurdles to the Z Fold like adoption. Obviously, aside from price, this thing
The
costs two
price is the
thousand.
big one. Yeah.
Yeah, this thing costs 2,000 starts at $2,000, which is obviously insanely expensive, and so
Mhm.
that is the big kind of barrier to entry, for, big foldables in general, but yeah.
I mean, first impressions here. We did point out the super thin Samsung phone when they announced their initial batch, and thin phones do seem like they're going to be the thing this year. But there's a lot of speculation that a lot of that comes down to like what these companies will eventually do with foldables. So we
Mhm.
kind of saw it directly here, like Samsung are building a single thin phone, and then they can apply that like double thin plain thing to a foldable. If the rumors are true about Apple also releasing a very thin iPhone, you can expect that to be like sandwiched whenever
Yeah,
they
yeah, and the rumors have
pick
been
it up.
going along for quite a while that, like, 2026 is the year when we might see an Apple foldable iPhone.
Which is
Um
which is pretty wild because Samsung is on the Galaxy Z Fold 7 now.
Mhm.
I feel like the original Fold, we could call that beta test, like we criticized it as such. That was not a thing anybody should have bought. But Samsung like quickly started correcting those issues. Like they've had years of experience building foldables, dealing with the hinge, figuring out how to make it waterproof and making these things thinner. Do you think, Sam, that how hard would it be for Apple to actually catch up to where Samsung is now in the foldable world?
That's a good question, and I think the best kind of trajectory to look at is Google's Pixel Fold and then Pixel
Right.
9 Pro Fold. The Pixel Fold was like had that landscape design and it was a little bit weird, and but as soon as they jumped to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, Google almost completely caught up with Samsung in just
Mhm.
2 generations. And so I think, that's kind of always like, Apple's playbook. We're going to wait for the technology and the design and people to figure out some of like the quirks of like new form factors, and then they can swoop in and kind of skip some of those like early growing pains and kind of get right into it. And I really think that Apple will be able to come out with something pretty engaging relatively quick. Might take 2 generations, kind of similar to
Yeah.
what we saw with Google. They might hit a home run on the first attempt, but I think there'll probably still be a little few awkward points. But and in some ways with the Z Fold line in general, especially with the Z Fold 7, Samsung actually I feel like they might have saw what Google was doing with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, where they made the outside screen the exact same size as a regular Pixel 9, and
Mhm.
so they kind of Samsung is moving closer to that, where you have more of like a square phone and a wider exterior cover screen.
The Flip is looking really nice too. Well, before we get to the Flip, actually, the Z Fold. The other big thing is like this looks like the craziest camera Samsung has put on any of its devices. Right, 200 megapixels.
Well, I mean, you can actually trace that lineage back to the S25
Right.
Ultra and the S24 Ultra, I believe, as well. And then they put it on the S25 Edge, and I think that was a big sign of like, hey, we took this huge high resolution sensor and we figured out how to slim it down and put it in the Edge, and then naturally that also allowed them to put it in the Z Fold 7 as
Yeah,
well.
it really sticks out of the Z Fold 7 though. Like the Z Fold 7 is super thin, but that camera bump is, that's a big lens. It's a big
Yeah.
sensor. Yeah.
Speaking of cameras, one interesting change, and I think most people won't care about this because even though it technically is a downgrade, Samsung got rid of the under display camera that was on the
Hmm.
inside, hidden underneath the main flexible screen. And they went back to a more traditional hole punch
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah.
And it's higher resolution now, 10 megapixels. And so obviously that's gonna, have some really nice benefits if you use it for video calling or video meetings and stuff like that. We're just gonna have better image quality overall. Yes, you do have that little, dot in the top right of the screen. I
It's
don't really
probably
think people
worth
are going to
it.
care about that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is just interesting from like a, development standpoint because it seems like Samsung was so gung ho about like this technology and being able to have like, an uninterrupted display. And then they're kind of retreating back from that. I don't know if they're going to give it up on entirely, but it's kind of interesting to see that.
I think probably part of it is that the actual good camera sensors have done such a good job of getting smaller and higher quality.
Mhm.
The trade-off of just having a little hole on the screen display like is worth it to have a much higher quality front-facing camera. I don't like I've played with a bunch of like, Android phones where they have the seamless front cameras. I don't mind it on the iPhone, and I'm always constantly shocked about how good the quality is on the iPhone compared to some of those under glass cameras. So
Mhm.
I feel like that's it. That
Yeah, yeah,
trade-off
yeah.
is just the thing. Anything else about the Z Fold 7, Sam? It seems like you're a fan. I know you like the Z Fold in general. This
Yeah,
does seem
and
like the most refined version they put out there.
oh, 100%.
Hmm.
That said, we do, the battery capacity hasn't changed. It's 4,400 milliamp hours. So same as last year. Although you should see a little bit better power efficiency thanks to the new Snapdragon 8 Elite chip. And then we have to talk about, hey, there is no longer S Pen support on the
Right.
Z Fold 7. That is something that like I think people really like to see, but Samsung themselves said they saw, and I'm quoting, very low usage of S Pens with Z Fold devices.
Hmm.
So I think we're talking like less than 10%, maybe less than 5% of users were actually using stylus support. And after Samsung removed the stylus slot on the S25 or the S Ultra line, I think the kind of the writing has been on the wall for the death of S Pen integration, or it just like kind of clawing it back. And I
Hmm.
also think that like just with the kind of uh, much better precision and accuracy and responsiveness you get from today's modern touchscreens. The idea of needing a stylus, especially on a smaller device, is not all that important. Now, if you're talking,
Yeah.
larger
Yeah.
tablets, 9-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, big and bigger than that tablets for like, dedicated creative artists, and drawing uses. Obviously, that is still very important, but stylus, I mean, I'm not a great, painter, artist, whatever,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
sketching on the Z Fold screen has always been a little wonky to me, especially because it is still, there's some ultra thin glass, but the screen is flexible, so you can't like, you're always kind of worried about pressing too hard on that screen.
It's probably time to take a step back from the whole stylus thing too. Like that rewind way back, like that goes back to the original Galaxy Note, right? And
Hmm.
I forget if they even did that before the Galaxy Note, but that was a big deal because I was like, hey, big, big phone. That started the phablet trend. And also people who had trouble with touch typing could just hand draw stuff. And I
Yep.
remember for a lot of the Asian markets too, like it was easier to just draw, draw in what you're typing versus peck hunting and pecking on those keyboards. I think the keyboards have gotten better.
Yep.
I think that, like overall, a lot of people I see are also using voice dictation to input text and things, and that has gotten better. So then you're left with just like this big chunky thing that requires both space to hold the stylus in a phone frame, but also space in the like layers of a phone for a digitizer.
Yep.
It doesn't seem worth it anymore, right?
And Samsung specifically mentioned that. It's like,
Hmm.
granted, the digitizer is relatively thin, but they said, hey, by taking that layer out, they're able to make the phone a little bit thinner. And I think that's a good call out. Is like, hey, remember when everybody had physical keyboards on smartphones?
Yeah.
Okay, those went away too. And I think it's kind of the same thing for styluses on it's on phones specifically. Not we're still gonna have tablets with Wacom
Hmm.
support, or Apple Pencil support and stuff like that. So it's
Okay.
it's more of a niche thing and kind of less of a demand feature in terms of on phones.
It's less, I mean, it's disappointing sometimes, but sometimes companies do this too. I was talking about like Sony's XM, headphones and the XM5 because of how they designed it, no longer folded to be
Hmm.
compact. And for a lot of people, that was a big downgrade from the XM4. It made it harder to travel with. Sony justified it for the bigger drivers and everything, and I believe they're bringing back the fold with the XM6.
They did, yeah,
But
they did eventually bring it back. Yeah.
this happens sometimes, and it's if you are annoyed by it, then do not buy this product and voice your criticism here. The stylus I don't think is a thing most people are clamoring for, and maybe there's room for somebody to do like an external stylus that will work well on these things without the need for a digitizer panel too. I feel like for such a niche product, somebody should be working on something like that. I don't know. Anything else about the Z Fold 7, Sam?
No, that's pretty much it. I just, for all the like people who are like,
Hmm.
big foldable enthusiasts and are like actively dislike it, or, are very hesitant about it, go pick one up in a store. Go touch it, because the design is really the main thing with this phone, and it is such an improvement over previous generations. I own the Z Fold 4. I own the Z Fold 5.
Hmm.
They were great phones, but there was not a ton of improvement between the Z Fold 5 and the Z Fold 6. And so this is definitely a jump up in terms of Samsung is really flexing its engineering chops with this phone.
How does this compare to the other foldables we've seen? I don't know if you've seen the stuff from Huawei and other folks at this point.
Yeah, and so that's the one weird thing is that like a lot of the really cool like China only or at least Asian, specific big foldables, we just don't get over here. And so it is kind of a sad kind of gap that we can't quite bridge because there's your Honor Magic V's and
Right.
your Huawei phones and those are very nice and a lot of them have bigger batteries. Some people in challenge that hey, they do have bigger batteries and they're just as thin. And I would love to be able to have more competition. I think obviously part of the reason why Samsung is doing this is because they are kind of starting to feel the heat from some of their competitors, including Google and other Chinese manufacturers. And so, uh, yeah, it sucks. I wish we had more big foldable phone choices, especially here in the U.S.
I've seen a whole bunch of TikToks of people like traveling through China and looking at people just whipping out really slick looking thin foldables, and they're like, "What is that? Why don't we have
Yeah,
that?"
yeah, yeah.
Just a strange thing we're in. So, what about the Z Flip 7?
Mhm.
This one also looks thinner. Looks like they're
Yep.
applying kind of the same mentality, but more in like the foldable candy bar style, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And so, they have definitely the Z Flip has definitely gotten a new level of thinness. But I think the biggest change is that it now has a 4.3-inch edge-to-edge cover screen, and this is
Yeah.
great because Motorola was kind of ahead of the step in terms of getting that. Like, hey, you have a small screen on the outside, and just give me as much screen as you can. And
Hmm.
Samsung always had like a weird cutout around the cameras and stuff like that. That's gone for the Z Flip 7, and it's really nice and it is a little bit bigger too. And then on the inside, we're getting a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, the biggest on any flip yet. And one thing they didn't mention at Samsung Unpacked is that it now supports DeX. So if you have a tiny phone and you want to plug it into a monitor, you can do wireless DeX.
You want to
Uh,
dex it up?
yeah, you have DeX support on the flip line for the first time, which is kind of cool. Although I think it is a bit of a niche feature. And then for the first time ever, we are getting a Flip 7 FE, which is the first FE for any of Samsung's foldables.
Hmm.
That said, don't this is the one that like I'm going to tell people don't get too excited about because it's almost essentially a Galaxy Z Flip 6 but
Right.
with an Exynos processor inside instead of a Snapdragon. And actually the Z Flip 7 is also getting an Exynos processor but it's going to be slightly faster than the one in the FE. Um,
How? What's the price difference between the plane and the FE?
the regular Z Flip 7 is going to be $1,100 and the FE is going to be $900. So you're about looking, $200 price difference. And then on top of like your pre-order discounts and stuff like that.
I remember when the Z Flip was like 700, wasn't it? Like 700 to 800. Like it was much.
No, it never got down that much.
No.
It started at 1,500 and it has been slowly going down.
Right. Right.
As opposed to the Z Fold line, which started at $1,800 and is now at 2,000, which is like you guys are going in the opposite direction.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's
I
that's
know
kind
a
of how
few
it is.
folks in Engadget. I think our editor in chief Aaron Sapores has a Z Flip, and he really enjoys that.
He really enjoys it, but he is not a fan of the cameras, and I don't think the
Yes,
cameras have changed for this generation. We'll have to do some more testing to really dive into that one.
it's a cute little guy because you can flex it, you can have it sitting up, you can do all sorts of stuff. It is a weird type of a smartphone, whereas I think we've lost that in a lot of things now that everything became like a square or a rectangular slab. So
I mean, it
cool.
is really nice to hold, and you just kind
Yeah.
of appreciate how like compact it really is. That said, I want that bigger screen, so I'm more of a fold person anyway.
Sure. What's the sound of the Z Flip? Does it feel satisfying when you close it in and open it
Oh
up
yeah,
on
you
your
can
iPhone?
do the kind of classic close it with one
That's
hand
good.
thing, and it is extremely satisfying.
That's good. We do with the era of just like flipping your phone closed or the sliders from like the Matrix and stuff like the sort of physical stuff we used to do with our phones. That was a lot of fun. I don't think you'd want to do that with the actual fold because you're like, my precious baby, do not
Yeah, I
please
mean
gently
the
unfold.
both the Fold 7 and the Flip 7 haven't
Yeah.
have got new armor flex hinges from Samsung, and so
Hmm.
that kind of helps reduce the crease. There is still a crease, but it's at this point you either or can live with it or you just can't. It is like the crease is such a minor complaint in the whole scheme of the phone that like I can't argue with people who like don't like it. It's like if you don't like it, that's cool. But
Sam, for our video viewers, can you show the crease?
let me see if I can. Let's see. Um,
Okay.
so Yeah, you can kind of see it right there. But I really have to emphasize this. You only notice the crease when you're looking at it from the side. Like right now, can't really see
Right.
it. And most people when they look at their phone, they're kind of doing like this. They're looking dead on at it. Okay, and so it's one of those things. It's like it reminds me of that quote from The Matrix. It's like I just don't even see it anymore. I just see the phone and a nice screen,
Yeah.
and the crease doesn't even enter the calculation.
Is it still a plastic screen,
It's a
basically?
plastic screen. Samsung did say they kind of increased the thickness of the of the ultra thin glass, so there is a glass layer in there, and there's a new titanium kind of lattice inside to add even more rigidity. But it is still, if you want to put like a dent in it on purpose, it's not difficult.
That's another thing that makes me worried about having one with kids around, but yeah. I also the feeling of touching glass when you're doing a touchscreen is so nice. I feel like I don't want to get rid of that either. Anyway,
You still
uh,
have that exterior screen.
you do have the exterior screen too, which is basically a whole phone in itself. Is there anything notable about the Galaxy Watch 8? It's a new
Yeah.
Galaxy
So
Watch. It looks cool. Yeah.
two nice things. They brought back the classic with the rotating bezel, so now there's
Right.
the Watch 8 and the Watch 8 Classic. As someone who thinks that the rotating bezel on smartwatches is like the best thing, the
Hmm.
best smartwatch feature around, I'm so glad they brought it back. I don't
Yeah.
love the way the classic looks. It looks a little bit too traditional. I want something a little bit sleeker. They like really love having those ridges on the rotating bezel, and I'm not sure they need them. I also gotta say, I despise this cushion design. If you look at the new Galaxy watches, they're kind of a squircle, and then there's a
Right.
circular display on top of the squircle,
Ooh.
and it's like y'all got to pick one. Either do a square watch or do a round watch. And we kind of knew this was coming because the Galaxy Watch Ultra last year did the same thing.
Hmm.
And I just like the cushion design is weird looking. It's kind of an in between, and it's like you guys, if you guys are gonna flex your design chops, you gotta pick something and go with it.
It doesn't feel sleek, is the thing, but it also
It
feels like they wanted to show off a smaller display, but also they didn't have room to house all the internals, so
yeah.
you have to have both.
It
Yeah.
seems like a weird compromise in a way that I don't really enjoy. That
Hmm.
said, there is a new antioxidant sensor that you,
Okay.
and it's a little weird because you have to take the watch off and put your thumb on the sensor on the back of the watch to get a reading.
Oh, great.
Um, and so it's like how many times are you gonna do that a day? I don't know.
What
Um,
does the antioxidant sensor do? Do you need more
So it it
daylight
it, it
or something?
looks at your skin and it reads
Uh-huh.
the antioxidants level. The antioxidants are supposed to like reduce free radicals and kind of
Hmm.
help combat things like cancer and stuff like that. And so everybody should be kind of ideally shooting for more antioxidants. One thing that was really funny is that during our hands-on session, I was talking to a bunch of people, and one of the reps was saying that like we were looking at all the scores. Sherlyn scored very low on her antioxidant reading, but they
Yeah.
said everyone that they saw except for one person was scoring very very low, or not very very low, but
This
just
is
very
this is
low
not
on their
a
Yeah,
antioxidant
you should
this is
level.
not a
like
common
as a
thing. Yeah.
yeah, like as a control or something, you should have like someone who's like been very committed to like a vegan diet
Yeah, yeah. They,
and
they they
like
had one person who got a good antioxidant score. Literally everybody else was very low or low. And I think that probably says more about like the modern diet that like we have in society
oh,
than
okay. Well, yeah, but you're not blaming the tech here. You're not talking
Yeah.
about the tech here. You're like, oh, well, maybe our diets are the thing that's wrong, rather than
I
the
think I
fact
think
that
I think
this
everybody's
sensor is
diet could be
probably
could be way
wonky.
way better. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that part, but I think that the
Yeah.
sensor is probably wonky as well.
It also makes me think like, is this sensor actually even necessary, or is it just another thing to make it sound like you're tracking somebody's health? Like, I've been reading about antioxidants forever. I understand the whole free radicals thing. I don't know if a sensor is a thing that we can fully trust to do this, and I don't know if Samsung has had the health, expertise to start grading people on this too.
I
This
mean,
seems
they,
like one
they've
of those
done
things.
they've done quite a bit of like partners or getting
Yeah,
certified by FDA for some of the previous sensors and stuff like that. And I
sure.
think this is just like kind of the natural evolution of the smartwatch has become the like
Mhm.
health tracking device that you wear on you at all times.
I've
And so
literally never heard of an antioxidant sensor though,
I
like
mean,
in a
so
device.
the
That's
antioxidant
wild.
sensor itself is, I think,
Mhm.
relatively novel, but like
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of more niche health metrics that
Right.
companies are going to try to continue adding onto smartwatches just from here until forever.
For sure. I do like seeing the rotating bezel. That is always a nice fluid thing. It's kind of a thing I wish more companies were doing because I think the Apple Watch looks sleeker, but it doesn't have that tactile, wonderful functionality. You have the crown on the Apple Watch, but it just looks impressive. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about this because I don't think anybody's actually buying the Galaxy Watch 8. Do we have a sense of how big this market actually is, Sam?
Um, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, obviously, the three big players are Apple has
Right.
the land, the huge majority. And
Google
Samsung is
a bit.
up there, and then
Yeah.
Google's kind of in like a distant third. And aside from that, you have your
Mhm.
Garmin's and your stuff like that for like dedicated like marathon runners or just like fitness enthusiasts. Um, it's hard to say. I think people have just kind of determined that like a smartwatch is a really good companion device. It's not necessary, but if you are constantly trying to monitor your health and fitness and stuff like that, it's nice to have.
I feel like the smartwatch era itself has also died off a little too. Like the smartwatch outside of people who are exercising and actively want to track all those things. And in that case, you're going to pay for something that's a little more health focused. The casual smartwatch, the one where people just like walk around with, like
Mhm.
I've had an Apple Watch for a while, the Series 4, and I wore it off and on early on and I frankly don't miss much by not having it, but I'm also not out and about doing much. I don't know. I would consider a future Apple Watch. I just wish these things were a little more additive to our lives these days. But anyway, anything else you want to mention from Galaxy Impact, Sam?
Yeah,
Like
and
do we
so there
see
was
the
one.
trifold? Yeah.
Yeah, there was one thing we didn't see. There's been long rumors about Samsung coming out with some sort of tri-fold
Right.
Galaxy Fold Ultra, maybe they would call it. But and I thought they might have teased it as like a one more thing, or kind of kind of similar to what they did with the S25 Edge at the first unpack this year. But they just ended the keynote, didn't say anything about it, no news. So it remains to be seen if we're going to see it sometime this year or in the future. I hope we do.
Mhm.
But just
I
I
think
part of the reason I was there in person is because I wanted
right.
like get a look on that thing if it made an appearance. Sadly, it didn't.
We've seen a couple Chinese companies kind of do trifold stuff, just
Yep.
say like we did it first. But I'm also is this kind of BS? You know, like I get it. It's like the razor blade thing. Like screw it, we're doing 5 blades, we're doing 8 blades.
Yeah.
I don't know. Functionally, making a phone that kind of folds out like a pamphlet is actually helpful or useful. It's just
I am not
really
sure
one of those
about that
things to break.
either.
Yeah.
And I love big foldable phones, and
Right.
it's one of those things where it's like I'm gonna have I want to have gonna have to live with it to like really experience it, because like how cumbersome is it gonna be to
Right.
unfold this thing every time? And like 8 inches is a pretty big screen. Do I need
Mhm.
like a full like 10-inch tablet in my pocket? Maybe, not sure. I don't know. We'll see.
And do you need trifold to get there, or do you do the 10 or 12-inch tablet and make it a half fold and then make it more like a portable little netbook, like the Courier that we keep talking about? And the many other projects Microsoft has killed. What was the other one? The Neo, the Surface Neo.
Yeah, the
Uh,
one they announced
yeah.
and just never came out with, and I was really sad because that thing looked cool when they showed it
I feel
off.
like the door every time we see one of those, we're like, man, that looks really cool. And every time Microsoft's like, we're too afraid. We're too afraid to do the brave thing. Somebody's gonna do that. And that will probably be we've heard the rumors about like an iPad mini kind of being essentially the foldable for Apple, but
Yep.
that's also an 8-inch screen. So
Mhm.
that's just equivalent to the Z Fold. But I
Right.
can imagine somebody doing a 10-inch or a 12-inch tablet that you fold. We've seen some from Lenovo, right? Like these new laptops, these new foldable laptops. I've not
Mhm.
played too much with them, but I feel like there's totally room for somebody to do that really well
Yeah.
because I could see how that would be useful. Is the thing like I could visualize in my mind how I use that. The trifold phone. I don't know if I've ever wanted a phone to feel like a brochure or a pamphlet.
Right. That's it.
Yeah,
I kind of agree. It feels like one step too far, but if they can make the like unfolding process like really elegant somehow, I could see it. But yeah, it's one of those things that's like I think it's
yeah,
kind of still in the design space where they're kind of figuring out how to really optimize that the upcoming trifold phones. And Huawei has one out,
yeah.
and some other companies. Yeah.
I want more. Like let's talk more about like let's make our devices more flexible. But give me give me the smartwatch that's essentially a snap bracelet, like snap
Mm.
it onto your wrist and it's just a big OLED thing. And then maybe you unroll that and that can be a separate kind of device too. There's a lot of room to play here. I just don't, Trifold not really doing it for me. Anything else you want to mention from Samsung's Unpacked event, Sam?
No, that's kind of it.
All right.
Obviously, the at this
Mhm.
point, the next big event is probably going to be Google, and then we'll have Apple after that. So it'll be interesting to see how anything Samsung did unpacked kind of reflects or impacts kind of decisions from Apple or Google coming up
For
in
sure. Okay, so check
later
out our
summer, early fall.
coverage. Check out our coverage of all this Samsung hardware. You guys have hands-ons. I'm sure reviews are coming, so stay tuned. Engadget.com.
All right, let's
Top
do a
chat.
little.
Man,
Um,
Hello.
people are have a lot to say in the chat.
I think it's the gamification of the chat, actually.
Yeah, they've ruined it. Oh no. Well, yeah, more engagement, I guess.
Yeah, no, more engagement is more good. But maybe Nick
As Facebook
is
taught us,
putting
it
it
is good.
like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but I think that you get experience based on like each one of your entries in the chat. So
Right.
Nick is like, I'm just racking up points. Um
Nick is spamming. Hello, Nick.
yeah, so what did Nick say? They already removed the Bluetooth functionality of the Ultra S Pen. Um oh, talking about import an Oppo Find N5. Um
The Oppo Find N stuff looks really
Mhm.
awesome, but Oppo is just not available. They don't officially go aren't for sale here.
You would
Who
think
do I
they
have to
would.
know to be
Yeah.
Mm.
taken into, like, a shadowy back room of some, New York City, it's probably a carpet store, it's
I
not
mean,
even like a phone store or something, so I can at least look at all these China phones
yeah,
that
I
I
mean,
can't
so like
even
Hmm.
that's
imagine
that's
right
part of the
now.
reason why we go out to like trade shows and stuff like that. The thing is like you could order one online. It's just like the support when it comes to just like any sort of customer service or band support for like US carriers and stuff like that, that's where you're going to run into issues. You may run into issues if you try to import them because you could import it and then you have to deal with tariffs on top of that too, but yeah. um I mean, as I'm looking at chat, I think Nick
Yeah.
is obviously rightfully upset about them removing S Pen support. um but this is one of those things where it's like I think it's a difficult solution because if truly Samsung is saying that, hey, we are seeing incredibly low usage of uh S Pen usage on the Z Fold line, it's like if the demand just isn't there, then like how do you want the company to go bankrupt, like
I
continuing to make
wish
something that people don't buy?
they could give us an actual number or some actual stats or usage stats or something.
Hmm.
I will say, just from what I've seen of people using Galaxy Folds out there, I don't think I've ever seen somebody actually like spend time with it with the pen,
No,
with the
and the thing
stylus.
is that I see a lot more people using big foldables out in the wild than I
Yeah,
ever did before, and so I'm like incredibly like encouraged just seeing that like a greater adoption for big foldables in general. But you're right, I have never ever seen someone using the S Pen with the Fold series out in the wild.
yeah. Nick in the chat, who's become our number two chat now with his experience. You sound like a very big foldable fan and a very big Galaxy Fold fan. So I get it. There's one line here. This is why reviewers who say they gave us what we want are frustrating because they clearly don't actually use the Fold. Actual Fold users wanted a note style kitchen sink productivity device, not a paper thin fashion accessory at the expense of everything else. Sam, you were an actual note
Yes.
user or
So,
Galaxy Fold user.
allow me to
Yeah.
retort. I mean, look, I have owned every single Galaxy Fold except for the original one because it was incredibly limited and I couldn't get an unlocked one that would work on my carrier. Regardless,
Hmm.
um, like in terms of just like you say that like actual Fold users wanted a note style kitchen sink productivity device. Well, what besides the moving S Pen support, what have they taken away? And I get that you're frustrated about S Pen support, and I understand it, but like they haven't taken anything else away.
Yeah.
So if it comes down to that, it definitely sucks. I'm not arguing
Also,
with you
I just want
there.
to point out the reality here. Do not pretend that the Galaxy Fold is not a fashion accessory, is not a thing Samsung has sold on the basis of style and fashion, because that was there since the beginning. Like, a big idea is like nobody else is really doing this. We're doing this. It doesn't look like any other phone on the market. Like, there was always a cachet to it. So, buddy, you have a fashion device. People
And I
see it,
think
different people
even
see it.
in terms of like if you compare like the Z Fold line to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold or whatever,
Yeah.
Samsung does a little bit better when it comes to the productivity. They make the taskbar and stuff like that easier to use. You can have a always on taskbar, which you still can't really do on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Um, and so it's a hard choice because and the thing I think about the most is remember when people were just up in arms, and some people still are, about
Yeah.
getting rid of the headphone jack on phones. I think
I
this
mean,
is
that
sort
was
of the
on the list.
same situation,
I
where
mean, it is the same justification. I would wager the actual usage of people using those headphones is probably much higher, because I still
I
see
agree.
a lot
I
of,
think more
yeah,
people use a wired audio on phones than than Fold users are using with an S Pen.
yeah. So anyway, it is a good parallel there, I guess. Thank you, chat, for this. And Nick, I'm sorry you were disappointed by this phone, but I'm glad you like the Z Fold. Like, you're a fan. That's I have not seen too many hardcore Z Fold fans out there. All right, let's go on. Let's move on to
So,
other news. Yeah.
when you said that like people don't need a trifold that like looks like a pamphlet, I was
Uh-huh.
thinking about like a Simpsons style
Yes.
pamphlet cover that was like,
May
so
I
you just
subscribe to your
spent
pamphlet?
$3,500.
So you spent $4,000 on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, it unfolds twice. Congratulations. All
But
right, let's move
I
on
think
to other news. Yeah.
and one more thing about like foldables in general. I think one of the biggest issues with foldables is that they were just too big to carry around for most people. You always had to sacrifice it. They were
Yeah.
like if I'm wearing like going to the gym and I'm just wearing like loose shorts, they would like pull down your shorts and it's like, "Oh, I don't want this." But so they,
Yeah.
by making something that's just as thin as the S25 Ultra and pretty much the same weight, they have kind of eliminated that uh, you know, that scariness about big foldables.
That's a key usability issue, and I think it's totally makes sense for them to
And I
kind
think
of
I think there
take
are a
it out.
ton of people out there who would love a big foldable phone if it was one, the same size as a regular phone, which they've now done, and if it was two, the same price, or at least there was
Mhm.
much less of a premium to pay. 'Cause you're talking about an extra 900 to $1,000 to upgrade from a Galaxy S to a Galaxy Z.
Right.
And
Does
so
Samsung have like a big ass foldable tablet yet, Sam? Like a
no,
12 incher,
uh,
10 incher?
no, there's no like Galaxy foldable tab, which would be an
Should
interesting thing to see.
they then put the
But
stylus there, because if you're gonna draw,
True.
you're gonna need a stylus. Like, you need a big canvas,
yes,
so something like
and
this does. Yeah.
hopefully, maybe Samsung hears this and they kind of revamp. And I think the Galaxy Tab line has needed a revamp for quite a while, and
Yes.
so
Yes.
there's room for another member of the family because you have your super giant 17-inch Ultra, 17 Galaxy Tab S Ultra, whatever, and maybe something a little bit, a Galaxy Tab Portable or something like that,
Mhm.
where it maybe has a foldable screen and stylus support. I think that would be really cool.
Or something. I don't know how many people are actually buying Galaxy Tab devices. Like, the tablet market feels a lot like the wearables market sometimes, where it's like it's really just Apple and everybody else. So,
Yeah, and it's one of those weird situations where
mhm.
Samsung is one of the few companies that still does a true
Right.
premium Android tablet. And the tablet market is so weird because everyone is like it's so dominated by iPad and iPad Pro that like
That's
people
exactly
forget
why I
about.
wanna get a Samsung tablet. I just want something different.
Yes.
You're a madman. You're a madman.
I know that I'm a
You could buy
madman,
them
but, like, as someone who works in tech media, I'm like, "Okay, this is a big blind spot for me." I'm so deep in the Apple ecosystem that I would like something to break me out of it just a little bit.
What you learn is that Android has not evolved much on tablets,
D
like,
I
in
Yeah,
years.
I've heard, and so
Yeah.
if even if I spend, like, a few months with an Android tablet,
Especially
honestly,
with some of the like
there's a
productivity
res
stuff. Oh, sorry. Go
Hmm.
ahead.
yeah, there's a tech resale place down the street from me. I should just try to get, like, a tablet from, one of those
Hmm.
spots and then, like, see how I feel about it,
If it can
because
turn into like a secondary display, if you plug it into a tablet, like, can it just be a USB-C screen? Then yeah,
You
that's a
you
good.
can you can
mm,
do that.
Yeah, there you go.
Um, But yeah, Ben, you should do this because I'm curious. This thing is like, would you like Dex, Dex mode? Because Dex mode is kind of the unique feature to like Samsung tablets that makes it more like a laptop. So yeah.
I don't know if I'm
I
gonna.
think it would be cool to have like a tertiary small screen. For a little while, I've been thinking about like, okay, I really like my M1 Mac, but like, is there a possibility of getting a M4 or so Mac Mini? And then how would I recreate the like work setup that I have at my desk? I would probably want something similar to a laptop screen about where my laptop screen currently is. So that could be
Hmm.
replaced by a tablet, but then we're getting like needlessly complicated.
Needlessly complicated. I feel like, and would be great for you is just some sort of iPad that could be your secondary display when you're out and about too, Ben.
Well, yeah, tertiary display. I've got a
Tertiary. Yeah.
I
big
mean, they're not
monitor. So.
available in the Apple ecosystem, but you could try one of those dual screen laptops. I love them, but it is a bit of a stretch for some people.
A bit of a stretch. All right, let's go on to other news.
Yeah, let's get to other
We got
news.
okay. Let me go back here.
Oh, did you want to do Prime Day stuff before other news?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
we should
Okay,
do that.
good call.
Good call. Let's see, where's our Prime Day stuff right now? Okay. All right. Okay.
Wait,
Now that
hold on,
now
hold
that
on.
yep.
God, sorry.
Arr.
I need to make a note, but I dropped my pencil because I do
It's just
all of
my
this by
specs. They're
hand.
useless. Yeah.
Okay, go on.
It's a device that can fail. Anyway, okay. All right, enough of Samsung. Let's talk about Amazon Prime Day a bit, and honestly, like just a bit, because I think a lot of the sales are probably done by the time you're hearing this. Any takeaways for you, Sam? Because I know you've worked on a guide. I worked on the TV guide.
Hmm.
Uh, any takeaways from you this year?
I think it's interesting. We're seeing some discounts on AMD's X3D chips, which is like
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
powerhouse gaming chips, and usually those sell for maybe 100 or 50 bucks above MSRP. So to see any discounts on those is actually kind of cool. So if you're in need of a new, desktop CPU for your gaming rig at home, that's definitely something that I would check out. And it's actually kind of crazy. The redesigned Razer Blade 14 is up to 400 off. And my biggest complaint with all Razer laptops is that they're a little bit too expensive. And
Yeah,
so, hey, if you can get a discount on those, hey, suddenly you're approaching something that's like a lot more reasonable. And even Dell, their completely redesigned Alienware Area 51 laptops, the flagship one with a 5090 RTX 5090 GPU, that is also on sale. And these are systems that just came out like less
mhm,
than 3 or 4 months ago. So to see pretty significant discounts on these already is actually kind of cool.
that's cool. Yeah, a couple of highlights I'm seeing from our main page that you could still get as of Thursday. Some of these deals will still be live on Friday.
Yep.
The Sony WH-1000 XM5s. This is the previous gen Sonys that we talked about. They're down to $248. That is a crazy good price for those
I
headphones.
paid full. I bought a pair for my wife, and I paid full price for them like a year and a half ago.
Man, so
For
that was like what
Christmas.
350
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, probably.
And so if you can get a deal on those, they're pretty good.
Those are fantastic. As we mentioned, actually in this episode, those don't fold down anymore like the fours and the threes did.
And
I
my one issue with those
yeah.
is that you can't use them while you're charging, which they fixed for the XM6s. So just beware of that.
Oh, I forgot about that. Like the thing is, those batteries last like 40 to 50 hours. So I'm
Yeah.
like, even if I'm on a long plane ride, like once I'm done and done traveling for the day, I always plug it into
Yeah,
charge.
if you're that kind of person who like regularly remembers to charge your gear, it shouldn't be an issue. But like every once in a while, you'll have the thing like, oh, my headset died in the middle of a call, and then suddenly
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I can't use it while it's plugged in, which is just
So we reviewed the new ones, I mean, we've reported on the XM6s coming. The thing is, those didn't really change much other than bringing back folding and doing, playback while charging. So the
Mhm.
XM5s sound incredible. I was just on, every time I go on a flight, these are the headphones I bring with me, and they like kill background noise. They kill the plane engine noise. They kill like the annoying chatter from the overhead stuff. If you need to hear somebody like a flight attendant or somebody near you, you can like cup your hands to your ears, and it'll like enable the microphone. So it actually that does a good job of making it really flexible too. Anyway, $248 for that thing. Great, great deal. I'm seeing Mario Kart and Switch 2 bundles all over the place. Amazon
Yep.
had one for $500 too, since
There's
you haven't
a
gotten
fair
the
amount of
Prime yet.
good game deals. The
Uh-huh.
Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake is like $25 off. There's like some small deals, not a ton, like $10 off,
Mhm.
$15 off on Legends of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Tears of the Kingdom. And that's kind of crazy because normally we never see discounts on first party Nintendo
That's
games.
true. That's true.
So that's kind of nice to see.
And good timing there too, because people buying the Switch 2 who maybe didn't get the older stuff. Yeah, that's cool. I've been working on the TV guide, so that's the one I've been like putting a lot of info into here. Surprisingly, not that many like great OLED deals. Sony's Bravia 8 2, the 65 inches down to 3,000, but I still think that's too much. The best OLED deal I saw is LG's OLED Evo C5. The 65 inch is basically $1,800 now. Good price. What is a crazy price? And a lot of good deals I'm seeing is around the mini LED sets. And these are these things that are better than normal LCD screens. They have a huge amount of backlights behind them. So they get you like almost OLED like contrast. The TCL QM6K 98 inch QD mini OLED,
That's a big TV.
$1,800.
Sorry, what was that?
$1,800. 98 inches.
That's too much TV.
$1,800. That's a lot of TV. You better have space on your wall for that TV. Hey, but also the QM8K is the 65-inch QD Mini LED is down to basically $1,000. I paid that for the TCL 8 series several years ago, like 2020. That was their first mini LED set. I love that set. It still looks good, and that's a great price for it. The Sony Bravia 5 mini LED, the 85 inch is down to $2,300 as well. So the big sets have also jumped in price. If you want a frame style TV, crazy good deals on like the Hisense Canvas TV, which is basically copying Samsung's The Frame. It's a simple concept. Like it's a TV that looks like an art frame that you can display art with and has like low glare and stuff like that. The 65 inches down to $900 for the Hisense TV, and they make good TVs too. So there is that. Samsung's the Frame Pro, the 65 inch is $1,900. This is the one with mini LED panels too. So this is a good time to get a new TV if you've been sitting on it, if you've been waiting to upgrade. We have some soundbar deals too. The Sonos Beam Gen 2 is down to 369. Sam, have you ever seen the Sony Bravia Theater Quad in action?
Uh, I've heard it in action and it sounds incredible.
It's wild.
I got to do like a obviously this was in like a controlled demo that Sony set up, so obviously they knew how to like make it sound good. But that's one of that the theater quad is like something that like I kind of want for my own home
Yeah.
because it's makes setting up the surround sound just so simple because you have wireless four wireless speakers, you put them wherever you want and they kind of configure themselves.
These aren't even just speakers. Like I'm going to share this tab here. These are like flat panels. These are just like flat things. You put them in different like the front corners of your room and the rear corners of your room. Anyway, they're $500 off. They're still $2,000. But everything I've heard from people who've tried these and some people who own them, they sound incredible. And this is like for the people who have a lot of money to spend and you have like a really nice modern living room and you don't want to have big towers or even a sound bar around. Like apparently these do really well. So I'd love to.
Oh, that's really neat, and it supports spatial sound mapping and everything.
Yeah,
That's cool.
70 spatial sound, Atmos
And if you
all that
have a
stuff.
Sony TV, there is a special feature you can use the Sony TV as your center channel and then let the quads like really go
Don't do that.
ham.
Don't do that. Never do that. But it is a feature. Like
Because
it's LG, Samsung.
it would
Those
require
speakers
getting a
suck.
Sony TV. Why would you not wanna do
Those
that?
speakers suck. We
Oh,
we
okay.
we have talked about this many times. The problem
It,
with flat panel TVs, your speakers suck.
Oh, yeah.
like
Okay.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
only
yeah.
use the speaker on the TV, yes, it sucks. But as like a fill, it's actually kind of nice.
As a film, maybe, but the center channel is an important channel. Like, here's the thing: people are like, "Oh, it's just dialogue." No, no, no. On like a real surround sound system, your center channel is handling a lot of action, a lot of stuff all at once. Anyway,
Yeah.
try it. Let us
I'm
know.
the audio guy, and I approve this message.
Yeah,
But
do not.
that said, go listen to like the theater quads. They make a virtual center channel, and
Right,
it's crazy good.
right. I feel like that's all you need. Like, I know a lot of people who are just like all about only two speakers. All I need are two speakers, but they have like two big ass towers and a subwoofer. And good speakers will create a phantom center channel. Like we have a lot of the Atmos stuff. Like a lot of that technology will just kind of make that happen.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's Prime Day. There's a lot of good stuff happening. And check out Engadget for all of our deals. We've got the collection of our favorite deals up at the top of the site. It'll be live until Friday. And let us know if you found anything good. Drop us an email, podcastinggadget.com. All
Okay, now
right.
we can do other news.
Now we can do other news. Okay. All right, let's move on to other news. And we'll just blow through this real quick. But I think one of the funniest, biggest pieces of news this week is
Oh, it's not funny. I don't find it funny at all.
it's hilarious. Ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino is stepping down after 2 years. How dare you laugh at her, Ben? How dare you laugh at her
Oh, okay. No, no.
for
I think
events
this
and
part
her
is funny. I think that Grok
yeah,
is not funny at all.
her unwavering support of Elon Musk's insanity. We've brought up the idea of the pain sponge from Succession, where basically a fake CEO is hired to just absorb the garbage from the press and the media and the public and everything. Linda Yaccarino was Elon Musk's pain sponge for X, and she just like supported the hell out of it until we don't know like how closely related these are, but earlier this week, right before this, Grok, which is X's AI chatbot thing, it kind of had a weird anti-Semitic freakout after a while. It started referring to itself as Mecha Hitler. It also started like referring to things almost in the voice of Elon Musk, which was wild too. Not great, not great. And this is actually not the first time Grok has had like a weird little freak out about this. But anyway, that happened the day after, or a few days after. Yacarino's out. There is report.
It was literally the day after,
It
and
is the day
then I
after.
think that was the same day as a new like Grok unveiling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a new algo, I think 4.0 for Grok.
Yeah, yeah, they were unveiling like 4.0 at like a little demo.
there was additional
And
reporting.
everybody was like, "Oh, are we
Yeah,
still going to are they still going to do this because,
people were asking
they
for comment. That's the whole thing. But there was additional reporting from the New York Times that Yacarino said that she was planning to leave before the Grok freakout. We'll see. Sure. I think she was maybe, it could possibly be that she was aware that other changes were going to be happening and that kind of played into her decision. Cool. Cool. I don't know if anybody's actually using Grok. There's also news that Grok AI is going to be available in Tesla vehicles next week. So, do you want your car to think it's Mecha Hitler? I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that's an upgrade for Tesla.
I saw some headlines saying get ready for a hard right turn in Teslas.
Oh boy.
So,
Oh boy. That's what would the new navigation voice be basically for them?
uh, so let's just move on to Cloudflare. What
Let's move on to Cloudflare. A cool piece of news. Cloudflare says Cloudflare, which is to be clear, is a service that people subscribe to that essentially protect their websites from DDoSs and other attacks and things like that. A lot of the internet uses it. When Cloudflare goes down or has issues, a lot of the internet has issues. So
They're one
that's
of like the
been
big backbones of the internet that people
it's
kind of
yeah,
overlook sometimes.
it's been something we've talked about because that is kind of a dangerous thing actually because it kind of kills the whole distributed distribution of the internet being a useful tool. Cloudflare says it's experimenting with blocking AI bot scrapers unless they pay a fee. So that's one way to deal with AI bots and AI theft, I guess. Except I don't know. It's a private beta experiment called Pay Per Crawl. I don't know how virtuous this actually is because this is just another way for Cloudflare to make people pay them. So good and bad, I guess. I
Yeah, but
you
then
don't
there's
want to do this with
all of
AI.
the other stuff that people are talking about in media specifically,
Mhm.
where they're talking about like a traffic apocalypse that's
Yeah,
happening. Because if you are looking for information and you can get it in the like Google AI preview, or instead of going to Google at all, you're going to ChatGPT or Claude or something,
hmm
it's taking all of this information from like some scraped image of the internet, that might have been 6 months ago or something. And it's actually, you're not going to Engadget.com, you're not going to the New York Times, you're not going to like any of the other places where new information is being put online.
yeah,
And that is killing a lot of the like financial incentive to put new information
yeah.
online.
Why would you click into a website if your search engine is showing you everything? Like Google does this already. If you search a lot of Engadget articles, it will summarize them and then link to, hey, this is all from Engadget. That's it. That's all the information people need is that quick glance of information. So I get it. I get it. It's a dangerous thing. Media is not great right now, and this is a weird situation we're in. Let's talk about Jack Dorsey, who's back in the news. Jack Dorsey just released a Bluetooth messaging app that doesn't need the internet, supposedly secure. It's a BitChat is a secure mesh chat. I also saw reporting from TechCrunch saying it was not actually tested by security engineers and professionals, so we don't know how secure it actually is. This is not a new idea. The idea of a mesh messaging app, especially over Bluetooth, I believe during the Hong Kong protests, it was a thing that was used quite a bit there because it couldn't easily be tracked. It's a great idea if it actually works. Yeah, Sam, Ben, any thoughts on this thing?
Sam, do you have anything to say? Because I could just go off again.
Go off.
Um, it seems like Dorsey is doing another act of trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Right.
Like he has realized, oh no, some of the stuff that I've done has not been good. Perhaps like selling Twitter or like giving my blessing to sell Twitter has done an overall like net negative to the world. So um because of the ensuing protests that are probably going to happen, let's make it easier for these people to communicate or something.
Yeah.
That is, my like 2-second cyberpunk novel about why this is
I could see
happening.
that. Like,
I don't know why it's it probably has some connections to his company Block as well.
mhm.
Decentralized blockchain, all of that stuff.
Dorsey is an interesting figure because he has since become like one of those really annoying Silicon Valley people that looks like he's always on a Zen retreat,
Yep.
like, and that's kind of what it is. But he was like a punk kid coder. He was somebody who came to San Francisco, didn't really have a job, and like stumbled into working at Odeo, which is where the whole idea for Twitter and everything kind of came about.
Originally a podcast company
Originally a podcast company. Where is it now as a podcast
or a
company?
podcast platform or something like that.
Something like that. But Dorsey didn't. He's not like the Ivy League kid that left school early, like Zuckerberg. He's not. I don't think he's necessarily somebody from like tech royalty. Like it seems like he was the scrappy programmer that wanted to do things. I don't give him much credit. Like I don't care if he's sad about selling Twitter because he made a lot of money doing that, and this is probably the least he could do. Blue Sky started as a project within Twitter because I think he was discussing, along with the people who were starting the Blue Sky project, that there was a need for a sort of like decentralized social network as well. So I think he is thinking about this stuff, but I don't know. I cannot take him seriously at this point unless he's like provably doing something that is bettering us in the tech world. But chat sounds cool though. It's a cool idea.
And then there's this really scary thing about Marco Rubio being having like an AI imposter sort of.
Hmm.
This is, I guess, kind of a social engineering attack because they are impersonating Rubio, both in his style of writing and then also his voice. Is that correct?
I believe so. I mean, and this is literally the things we were warning people about, like when LLMs and a lot of these AI powered tools were coming about. I was like, oh, great, we're in an era of misinformation, and now you're going to make it easy to replicate people's voices and the way they chat and stuff, because social engineering is not hard. So, hackers who perform social engineering are not doing complex things. It's often like talking to the right person to get access to whatever information they're looking for. This kind of shows like how AI is making this a lot more dangerous, and we still don't know who's behind it. That's the scarier thing. This is still
Yeah,
out there.
so
Yeah.
I mean, it could very well be a foreign government, but this is something that's going to be happening much, much, much more often. My I was just talking with my parents a couple of days ago, and they said that, like, thankfully it wasn't actually a voice clone of me, but they got a call saying like, "Hey, Dad, like I'm in trouble, like something, something," trying to tug at the heartstrings of parents. And then eventually, of course, there's always an ask for money or I don't know, Amazon gift cards because they love the
Let's just
Amazon gift cards.
did I mention? I feel like I talked about this, but there has been a rise of like those sort of like panic calls, like
Yeah,
kidnap
yeah.
calls or ransom calls. And this happened to somebody in my family. Like they got this panic call saying, "We have your daughter. You have to come here and bring us money to get her or something." And she freaked out and called the cops and everything. But this is rampant, and this is no tech involved, no AI involved. But now add in AI replication of your kid's voice or something, or somebody that you know in your family, it gets a lot scarier.
Yeah, and the really scary thing is like, what if your kid is doing the thing that like all elementary school kids or middle high school kids, whatever, all young kids right now want to be like YouTubers. So
Yeah,
let's imagine that they are like putting stuff on YouTube. Maybe they have like a nice little
it's
following or
TikTok now,
something.
but yeah,
And yeah, TikTok, but also YouTube, because who knows what's happening with TikTok. Actually, we're going to get to that in a
yeah.
little bit. Um, but uh imagine somebody like scrapes a bunch of audio from these pretty earnest attempts at building an online platform, and
Mhm.
you can make a pretty good voice clone of an actual kid. Like, that's scary.
Yeah, you can do that now with 11 Labs, I believe. Like their technology has been doing this forever. Hey, a lot of this seems like we are stumbling into this crazy universe of AI powered tools, and we have not fully thought about the consequences of them. I wonder what that's going to mean for us, for information, and for humanity. Anyway, let's talk about Anthropic, Ben.
Yeah, actually, no. Let's go back.
Okay.
Before we talk about Anthropic, let's talk about how the information um, published an article this past weekend about
Mhm.
how they might have found some buyers for TikTok. It's
Okay.
n- seriously, like,
Yeah.
the US government is still trying to do this. Like, they've extended the TikTok ban for another some number of days,
Mhm.
and the information reported that it could be a crazy group of people, including Blackstone and Andreessen Horowitz and Oracle, and um, they could be developing a app that right now they're just calling M2, because internally the TikTok app is called M, um, and not much beyond that is known. We
Mhm.
know some foggy ideas of who could be like standing up the US version of TikTok, and also that there's a possibility that come March 2026, there could be a switch from TikTok Classic as we know it now to this like balkanized US only version of TikTok. That could be a really big thing for how information flows from the world to the US,
Sure.
US to the world, and also just like affect all of the like internet culture memes. Like, I think that's really important.
So, I
And
mean, I saw the story, Ben, but how many times have we reported on the TikTok sale and those names? Those companies are all names that we've talked about before. It is certainly a thing that can happen.
it
Yeah.
feels realer now just
Yeah.
because like they've kicked the can down the road a couple of times, and it seems like they want to get serious about it eventually. I absolutely agree with you that there is a wide possibility that sometime between now and then there could be other developments that make this information moot, but this is like the most concrete info that we've had about any kind of a TikTok sale
For sure.
or
For sure.
standing up a US version of TikTok um, for a while.
I mean,
So
TikTok itself is already a little balkanized too, because like China's not getting access to the full TikTok. The rest of the world gets a separate app essentially, and I hear it also. What you see is ultimately different depending on your region too. So
oh yeah, I mean, it
yeah,
differs depending on where you are.
yeah,
I've used TikTok like in the Bay Area. I get a lot more Bay Area stuff. I've
it's
used
scary
TikTok
how
like,
local it's getting. Yeah,
yeah, like whenever I travel, I end up on TikTok, and I do see more videos from the like local area than
Mhm.
anything else.
Yeah,
So now we can talk about Anthropic. This is
for
something
sure.
that I find really interesting. I swear I don't have any aspirations to be a lawyer, but like legal language is really, really interesting to me.
Hmm.
So this Anthropic court case, that they got a mixed ruling. They mostly won, but also like got a little bit of a ping because they did illegally download a bunch of stuff in order to train their model,
Hmm.
and so who knows, they'll pay a bunch of money or something. This is a mosquito bite for such a massive venture backed company like this. But
But the main hook
yeah,
is
the
yeah.
thing that I thought was really interesting was that the judge who was presiding over the case, William Alsup, said that, like, in the biggest win for Anthropic, that
Mhm.
using all of this data for training their model was indeed fair use.
So
And I want to
using
read a
copyrighted
quote.
material was fair
Yeah,
use.
yeah, using all of this copyrighted material was fair use. I want to read a quote from his opinion that says, "The technology at issue was among the most transformative many of us will see in our lifetimes." And if you are someone who doesn't know anything about copyright law, or, is just skimming the article, you might be really enticed to be like, man, this judge is like 100% in the tank for
Mhm.
AI, and like he is saying, why get in the way of like innovation because it's transformative? No, he's talking about transformative in the fair use copyright law
Right,
sense.
right.
So then I looked up like what transformational use under fair use is. And there are some really interesting examples. Like in the musical Jersey Boys, they were able to use a clip from the Ed Sullivan Show without paying anything to, is it CBS or
Probably,
NBC?
yes.
Who,
Yeah.
yes, like CBS, because it was done in the context of like a biographical thing. The Ed Sullivan Show was talking about the Four Seasons, and so they were like, "Yeah, you don't have to worry about this at all." Another really interesting case is this like case of a painter versus a photographer, Cariou v. Prince. This painter, Richard Prince, used a bunch of photos from a photo book in paintings of his, like as a collage. And there was a whole court case. The photographer was like, hey, you're using like full pages from my photo book. Like, what's going on here? The court case like eventually deemed that the art itself, the context around the art, changed the photo, the original photo page enough that it could be considered fair use. So if you go by like the weird legal understanding of fair use, you could
Mhm.
say that maybe like Anthropic is the way its chatbot works. It's just doing like a crazy collage of all this copyrighted material, and therefore it is transformational. I think this is fascinating.
That's
So
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
it's interesting, but let me try to like
Mhm.
cut through some of like the legal jargon. So, I mean, I think the judge is actually correct in this because think
Mhm.
about this. If you are a person and you, let's say you go read Moby Dick, and then you decide that you want to write another story about a guy trying to catch a whale, do you owe anything to Moby Dick? No, and that's
I
kind
mean,
of
Moby Dick is
what.
also out of copyright. Let's be
It's out
real.
of copyright.
Okay,
Yeah.
but let's assume that for the sake of the argument that Moby Dick is still under copyright. Do you like if you want to write something that's about a guy trying to catch a whale? Do you own anything to Moby Dick? No, no, or the not really. And so that's kind of what AI is doing. And so the judge is like, they you can sue Anthropic for piracy
Mhm.
because they attained all these copyrighted materials, and then didn't pay for them. And so that makes a lot of sense. So it's like if you compare what humans do when they create new content, humans are inspired by all the art and stuff that we see, and so it's kind
Yeah,
of the
it
same
all
thing.
becomes like a mishmash in our
And
brains.
like
And then we're like,
Yeah.
did I actually like write that, guitar riff or something?
Mhm.
Or is it something that I heard on the radio like 10 years ago?
right.
But you're inspired by doing that, and maybe that affects how you build something. But if you make another story about a guy, essentially chasing a whale for the same reason, it ends up being this actual metaphor for personal self-discovery and man's motivation and everything. I feel like after a certain point, you're just yes, you were just copying Moby Dick, and the author,
For sure.
if it
and
was
and,
enough,
and, and
might
I
be
think
able to say,
that
hey,
that's where like
man.
the gray area is in terms of
But that's
like
what a lot of
what.
the AI models are doing. Is the
Yeah.
thing, like when you ask it to bring up ideas, it will start pulling a lot of things directly from these like stolen pieces of art. So I hear you, Sam. It's just the AI tools are not even
and,
as
and like
as
as a
nuanced as we
like
are.
another like general
Mhm.
example, Andy Warhol, what's one of Andy Warhol's like famous pieces of art? It's a Campbell soup can. He didn't make the can, he didn't make the design of the can.
Mhm.
And so,
It's the
but
context around the can, it's the
Context around
idea
the
of the art,
exactly. And
it's
so,
like
even though he just basically looked at a Campbell soup can and painted it,
Mhm.
you know, that
Let's
is
if we're gonna get to modern
transformational.
art, now things are even things are
well, and there's also
even
the idea of, like, you can't copyright a vibe. So, let's say, like, William Gibson, like, Neuromancer is in the news because they're finally doing a Neuromancer adaptation.
Mhm.
You can't copyright the cyberpunk vibe. You can't be like, "You know what? This one person owns, like, trash-filled streets and, like,
Right.
cables going everywhere and cybernetic implants and all that." So
I mean, you
it's
can't own it, but also if you literally just pick up and copy one of those ideas, people can yell at you for being a goddamn, creative, like being creatively inept. This is somehow all these conversations get back to how much I hate the underworld movies, but
Wait, how does it
this is they basically stole a lot of the sort of like world of Underworld from like a lot of role playing games. I believe
Oh,
the vampires games, essentially that concept and like the
like
sort of
Vampires the Masquerade?
yeah,
Mm,
sort of. And also the sort of like action ideas in it were not really fresh. It was things all done before.
yeah.
But the difference between like that and like the Matrix is like Matrix also recycling pop culture and things we knew before. Underworld just existed, didn't move beyond those references,
Well, yeah, they
I
did it in
always
a
hated
fresh way, like whether or not you wanna say, like, the trans allegory is really hitting you in the face or if you
yeah.
need to look for it, like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. The
There's
last
so
thing that I wanna mention
yeah.
is that while I was researching this bit
Mhm.
about the Anthropic court case, I found a YouTube video that was completely AI
Uh,
images, AI
yeah.
voice about the Cariou v. Prince copyright case
Mhm.
intended for law students. So it comes all the way full circle. The snake eats its tail.
I hate the YouTube AI videos. Like, and I think like there's rumors that YouTube is going to start like cracking down on how people can monetize those things. Like,
Yeah,
actually, like
because
cracking down on
all you
monetizing AI
do
creators.
is
Yeah,
maybe spend what, like half an hour doing something that like most other people spend like hours and hours writing
may not even
script and
be
all
half
of
an
this
hour. Like,
stuff.
if you combine like text plus, hey, make these images and tell the AI to like do some work, it's could not even be half an hour. Like, it's just the whole thing. Anyway, that's it for now. Anthropic. We'll be keeping an eye on this, and certainly like where copyrights and everything goes when it comes to AI. That is something we'll definitely be focusing on. Let's move on to what we're working on. For me, it's basically just Prime Day, and also I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks, so I am like rushing to complete a few things I need to do before then. Sam, anything you want to bring up?
I mean, obviously working on Prime Day stuff and the Galaxy Z Fold 7 review.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hopefully getting the new Alienware Area 51 laptop in for review soon. And I've been kind of dabbling in some Switch 2 accessories recently, and I'm gonna have a review on this as soon as I can. But I've been testing out the Waterfield magnetic case for the Switch 2, and
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, it is the most luxurious like
Mm.
handheld console case I've ever had. It's like beautiful, like super soft leather. It's
Okay.
just a case, so it literally holds the phone, but it uses magnets instead of zippers to kind of keep everything enclosed, and it
Sounds
is just
expensive. How
really
expensive is
nice.
it?
It's expensive for a Switch 2 case. I
Mhm.
believe it's $80.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Wow. Okay.
but just like,
Wow.
the quality is just really really nice, and it's like, usually like gamers, like we get thrown the worst quality
Sure.
plastic
Sure.
RBG garbage, and so it's like, oh my god, it's just so much nice to have like a nice premium thing to hold your very nice premium Nintendo console.
I mean I hear you. I really like the Tom Talk case, and that thing was like I think it was under $40. So that
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
I'm really
don't get me
happy that
wrong,
you told me about
it's
it
you're paying a
because
lot for it, but at least you feel the quality when you're using it.
definitely, definitely. Okay. Very cool, Sam. Thank you so much. Let's move on to our pop culture picks for the. Or what else are you doing, Sam? The Alienware thing? Did you mention that?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
uh,
cool, cool.
Okay, so yeah, I'll cut that out. Let's
Yeah.
just go to picks.
Let's move on to our pop culture picks for the week. Sam, what do you got?
I just finished Ironheart. I believe the season's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I have I don't know if you've been watching it
I
as
watched a
well.
couple. It's fine. Yeah.
I want to really like it. I think the suit looks cool. I think some of the characters are really interesting. But I'm just like having some of like the through line of the plot and some of the like the story beats, I just don't really see how they connect. And there's like a lot of times where I'm just like, I know this is like a comic book TV show and like the suspension of disbelief is sort of built in, but sometimes they're just like really asking me to stretch, like even within the Marvel universe of like,
Yeah.
what in the hell? How did this even happen? Um, but I think it's a good watch, and I like mechs, so they sold me with a cool looking suit.
It's just it kind of shows how like scattered Marvel strategy is because they introduced this character. They introduced Riri Williams in what Black Panther 2, which
Hmm.
came out several years ago. I feel like we've memory hold that whole movie and that whole thing too. I honestly did not like it nearly as much as the first one because that movie was, delayed, had a lot of trouble because the main actor died. So, they had to completely rework what that thing was. But by the time they could actually produce the Ironheart show, I feel like a lot of the interest had just like disappeared. So it's a shame, but I like Riri. I like the look of the show. It's pretty cool. Anything else, Sam?
And quick shout out to season 2 of Dan just started.
Yeah,
That was one of my favorite new animes last year, and so it just came back. Believe it's available on Netflix. So
it's on Netflix.
if
Yeah.
you followed that show, check in again because you got new episodes.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'm liking season 2 of Dan to Dan. Did you see the movie, Sam? Because that was in theaters for a
I
while too.
did not. I have not been able to go to a movie theater with two kids under 4. So yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. That's why I only have to go. I go late for late screens, but also it's a part of one of my jobs. So at this point, that's
Yes.
kind of how I justify it. All right. As for me, I have seen Superman. I've seen James Gunn's Superman, and it is incredible. It's a lot of fun. It is the Superman movie I wish somebody had made in the last few decades. For me, the original film is one of the best comic book movies ever made, and also I think one of the best like action
Wow.
films ever made. The first Superman is fantastic, and I feel like they couldn't even get that recapture that magic in the sequels to that movie. Um, Superman Returns was way too reverential to how great Superman was. Frickin' Man of Steel and the entire Zack Snyder universe of DC stuff never understood Superman
I was gonna say
because
don't
that's
don't upset the Snyderverse fans. They're gonna be acting for a
what
Snyder
I've
cut
been doing for the
of the new
past
movie.
15 years, Sam. Like I've been doing this for a while. But I think like there are some things that worked in the Snyderverse. His take on Superman did not, because dude is not a really hopeful writer or thinker. Um
I think
and
the
yeah,
character, what you said, the idea of what Superman represents and
yeah.
Zack Snyder's like general style don't aren't a great fit.
He tried to like Batmanify Superman and the idea of hope, the idea of like goodness that Superman represents. Um was just completely lost. And this movie totally captures it. Like I knew James Gunn had it in him because he's a writer and director I followed for a long time. He made us care about, a talking tree and a raccoon voiced by Bradley Cooper. This guy is very good at making us care about his characters. And in this one, this is a movie about Superman being good and the world not understanding how to deal with that. And Lex Luthor essentially being an Elon Musk analog, just this crazy billionaire tech bro who hates Superman because he's good. That's the main thing. I'm not going to spoil much here. If I have time, I will write up a piece comparing Lex Luthor in this movie to Elon Musk, and that's going to get me another whole wave of hate. But anyway, I think everyone is great in this movie. The action's great. It's funny. It's silly. It brings in a lot of stuff from the DC universe. Firefly fans are going to enjoy this quite a bit too, because we have
Nathan
Evan
Fillion.
here. You have an Alan Tudyk voice. Alan Tudyk being a
Oh,
robot voice
true.
once again, but Nathan Fillion just being a Green Lantern, but like a really dorky, silly one too. Um, that's a lot of
I was gonna
fun.
say like
Yeah,
this is kind of like James Gunn's like debut for he's now in charge of the DC
yes.
cinematic universe. So like like and we've seen kind of like the kind of Marvel like inertia kind of tail off. Are you
Mhm.
suddenly like a lot more
He
excited
is
about what
DC's
the
Joss Whedon right
Yeah.
now, and I just hope that the same thing doesn't happen to him.
I mean, it's the whole thing. But at the very least, James Gunn, like I'm more excited about what he's doing because he is somebody who's more thoughtful about his writing and his characters. And he is saying he's being very purposeful. They're not greenlighting any of the DC films until he likes the script, which is, hey, step one, don't start with a release date that you have to rush to make. ma- build a good movie from the ground up. And he is a good writer who thinks about character. Um, Sam, I think you should break your movie theater streak and try to see this in theaters because it's a big, bold movie. I saw it in a Limax screen. It looks fantastic. David Corn Sweat as Superman and as Clark Kent. Beautiful. Crypto the dog is fantastic. There's some fun cameos in this too that I don't think were widely publicized. So it's cool to see. I think this is a knock. It's a total knockout, but it's also very weird, and I kind of wonder how general audiences are going to take this. Like that's the main thing. I don't know how. I
Yeah,
don't know if
it
it's actually
seems
going
to
to
be
be a hit.
doing
Yeah.
being it's a little divisive in terms of just like
Yeah.
audience feedback so far.
Well, and the critics tend to love it, but I also know some personally who did not like it and they thought it was too silly. And I think we're allowed to be silly. And this is silly in a really sincere way and not the sort of like Marvel smarminess and cynicism that is in a lot of those things too. So Superman's good. It's real good. It's a lot of fun. I hope everybody gets to check it out in theaters. I also want to quickly shout out a new series I'm watching on Apple TV. It's called Smoke, starring Taron Egerton, who is now like an Apple TV mainstay. He's been in several movies and shows for this network. It's created by Dennis Lehane. It is based on a podcast series about
Hmm.
a small town where there were two arsonists producing basically ravaging this small city. And it's up to a fire investigator, an arson investigator, and a local cop to kind of figure out what's what. And I think it's really, really good. It's really compelling. Co-stars Taron Egerton and Jodie Smollett. I will watch Jodie Smollett in anything. Like she is fantastic. Greg Kinnear is in this, being all Greg Kinnear. It is a really good thriller, really well built, and I will say, watch the first two episodes. This is one of those shows where the setup basically takes the length of a movie. And the first episode is good, but I think kind of generic. Like you kind of get the generic buddy cop build up in the first episode. The second episode tells you why the show is something new and interesting and special. So yeah, check it out. It's Smoke on Apple TV Plus.
All right, chat. We're gonna stick around for just a little bit after I do, but I'm gonna do the credits and then I don't know, 5 minutes or so.
Chill, no chill.
So thank you, everybody, for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our former managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by me, Ben Ellman. You can find Devindra online
at Devindra on Blue Sky, and I podcast about movies and TV at the Filmcast at thefilmcast.com.
You can find Sam online
Uh, at Sam Rutherford on X or at Blue Sky. I'm on there. If you want to start a conversation, just hit me up.
Find my reposts and only a few original posts at heybellman at Blue Sky. Email us at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts. That includes Spotify. So everybody remember that we're going to be taking a couple weeks off of the live stream, but there are going to be fun things in the podcast feed. If not a full episode, there are going to be interviews with interesting people. So there's reasons to go and actually go to the RSS feed. Keep RSS alive. I swear if you don't, I'm going to be mad.
If you kids ruin our RSS,
Yeah,
bring
seriously.
this internet around. God. Why about Superman says they have superhero fatigue. I get it. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people do, but I
that's
also think
valid.
a lot of people have Marvel fatigue, specifically, like
Mhm.
around that universe and those characters and keeping track of everything. Superman feels like a fresh start, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of things people haven't seen before. So I think you can just jump in, and if you don't know who this or that character is, it's fine. You can just like enjoy the movie and catch up later.
There's also room for DC to be grittier. I remember talking
No,
with my dad.
no
Uh
more.
Wait,
oh.
what are you talking about?
This is gonna start
What's
the,
the
the grit
Well, no, but
versus
I'm
fun
not
debate.
no, I'm not restarting the Snyder stuff.
Yeah,
I'm saying that DC tends to have weirder characters than Marvel.
sure, sure.
This is a conversation that I had with my dad years and years ago as I was just starting to understand comic books. I was, maybe like 10 or 12 years old. This was still a number of years before the MCU even started. And I was like, "Hey, Dad, what's the difference between Marvel and DC?" He said, "Marvel is like closer to Disney." He was already making that connection a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
And he said that DC tends to have weirder characters. So think about like the Gun Suicide Squad. You know, those characters wouldn't really exist in the Marvel universe, would they?
I think it's so dependent on the author, because I think if you look at like,
Yes.
oh, Frank Miller did some of like the Dark Knight stuff for DC, and like that's, you have really good examples of like grittiness done well. And then but the comic world is so big that there's like flavors for everybody now, I feel like.
The big differentiator is, and I've always seen, DC is essentially about gods. Like it's about big superhero characters, big Titanic, characters. And Marvel invariably is about people. It's
Mm,
about people who acquire superpowers and are forced to like live with them. So Spider-Man, X-Men,
Yeah,
Iron Man.
yeah,
Yeah,
the best example is like you look at Superman versus Spider-Man. I think is the
yeah.
best kind of juxtaposition for those. Yeah.
oh yeah, and the thing that I love about Spider-Man is that he is very busy, always late, and poor.
And poor.
Like
Yeah.
that makes him very relatable to me.
Which they didn't they never really
Also
tried to
from
do in the
Queens.
Spider-Man movies. Also from Queens, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies got that right. The newer ones didn't. Like it wasn't up until the end of the last movie, right, where he was like, "Oh man, I need to have a job. How is this working out for me?" I don't think they actually treated that character well.
I
But
know this isn't.
think about Bruce
Uh,
Wayne, right? Think about
but
Batman. He is a god of money. He's a
Yeah.
capitalist god. He can make anything happen. So that was always the big differentiator for me. But yeah.
um,
Also, like until the later versions of Batman, I don't think that you see him get injured all that much.
Mm,
Um, and I mean, it's not like there's an arc of like Spider-Man in an arm cast or anything. Like all of these people are pretty like durable. But like Batman's supposed to be this normal guy, and he gets into fistfights with goons all the time, and
true.
like he gets harmed, he gets thrown through like brick walls
Back
by like
broken.
Killer Croc or something, and then he just comes back. He's a normal man. He should be injured.
Normal man. Frank Miller is the one that really turned Batman into something a little more different and everything. But anyway, yeah. If you have superhero fatigue, I don't know if Superman will help, but it certainly is fun. It's a fun, funny movie that is not afraid of being silly. So that's why I'm recommending it to everybody. My daughter is 6 years old, and I'm kind of like, that's old enough. She could do it. There's some scary stuff in this, so I think like 10 to 12 seems like a good baseline for
good
Mm.
PG-13
Superman.
movie, right?
It's a PG-13 movie. There's blood. There's not much swearing. There is sort of like big scary stakes and stuff, but also
Does anything
fun.
happen to the dog?
I cannot say what happens to the dog.
You can't
God
hurt.
damn it!
You can't
Dog
hurt
seem
Crypto.
terrible.
Everyone
Dog
knows
already seem
Crypto.
terrible.
Well,
Crypto has the
okay, but
ultimate plot
do you
armor.
know about the website doesthedogdie.com? Like there are some people
Dog
who
is
are
terrible.
so
That's all I can
sensitive.
say. That's all I can listen. This is James Gunn. It's a Chekhov's dog. It's a cute dog you see at the beginning of the movie.
Uh,
Anyway, I'm not gonna say, I can't spoil anything. I'm not gonna say anything. Um, I
okay,
do think
well, I mean,
for
like if the
yeah,
dog gets banished to a mirror dimension or something, that's fine. Like whatever. But yeah, I mean, there are people who they're not 10 years old. They are any age that they just cannot deal with dog violence, and I understand that.
I
Like
totally get it. I totally
my
get it.
girlfriend and I were watching the very first episode of Sandman,
Hmm.
and like this is not like big spoilers. Also, Sandman like itself has been spoiled by like what is it? Neil Gaiman's reputation preceding him in a bad way. I think
Yeah.
that Netflix has a season 2 of Sandman that they'll probably just like really quietly drop without any fanfare because nobody wants to hear from Neil Gaiman after that terrible article
That
about his
happened. I think
assault
it's out.
allegations.
She was out. Yeah.
What's that? Oh, well, okay. So yeah, no, it's really, really quiet then. But so in that first episode, like Dream needs to get like his powers back. But in order to
Mhm.
get his powers back, he needs to like recycle like some magical energy. So he goes to some mythic characters. It might be like Tweedledee and Tweedledum or something like that. And oh no, it's Cain and Abel actually. And they have like this little dragon like critter that is basically a dog. And he's like, you know what? I need to like take the magical energy
Right,
from this
right.
dog to like repurpose it elsewhere. And that led to some tears that I did not expect because there
That broke
was
me up.
dog harm. Basically, it doesn't matter whether or not it was a real dog or if it was a dragon, it was functionally a dog. So,
I totally get it. Anyway, chat, how are we doing?
yes, Tom Rogers says no
Ratings?
dogs were harmed in the filming of this podcast. Absolutely.
No. My cats are
Why?
pissed off. I'm not playing with them. My
Why
cats are
says
harmed.
it must be
Yeah.
nice having a girlfriend. I did not intend to flex on the stream.
How
It's a
dare you?
normal thing. It's a normal thing. Go
But
touch
also,
grass, people. Yeah. Meet other
okay, I think
humans.
that's
It's
a
easier.
good place to end the episode on a kind of funny note. So thanks everybody for watching. Remember, send us an email at podcast@Engadget because regardless of whether or not we do little update like audio only episodes, we want to have like a big question bonanza. So come up with some interesting use cases. If your family has any like complicated tech questions that you could answer, but you also want like a consult on, let us be your second opinion.
Or you just don't know what gadget to get.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to chat. As always, you remember stuff we forget. You just make the stream a lot better. And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Also gonna shout out Mears Nook. You're not alone on this hill. We do need more superhero one shot movies. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough to do, but it's a thing. Anyway, we'll think about it. Say later, folks. See you in August for our next live stream. Bye.
Bye.